Hey, how you doing? It's me. I'm back. Got a new shirt. It's got a big frog on it, playing a banjo. I debated doing this one live, but in the end, I know myself I'd get too sidetracked, and there's like a couple things that I really want to just dive into and get off my chest and get it delivered kind of a way I have it planned out. So, start off the bat, this is a Lion's Share box chapter. This has got to be a smoother title than that, but it's chapter 12, all right? Page 110. And yes, there's a couple things I found in here interesting. Again, I don't think anything I found is a massive clue in and of itself. I do think this chapter is, well, one, it's an attention-grabbing chapter. I mean, massive gold rush nugget right there in the front, massive. I mean, starting out your title with massive right there. I mean, massive, right? Just by itself. Make good choices, all right? And then just one quote in red to focus on rather than two. I think this is a chapter that he wants you to focus on. I think he knew it would be a popular chapter. I mean, it's a pretty cool story, massive gold rush nugget. Having said that, a lot of other chapters have a takeaway. The takeaway from here is a little bit more, it wasn't what I was expecting. It's a little bit more abstract. And so the three things that I'll do the little introduction. What I want to talk about is the history, the etymology of the word California, and a fun little tie into Don Quixote that I don't think is massively relevant, but I had fun going down the rabbit hole, so I'll put that at the end, right? Because again, I want to lead with the juicy stuff or thing that that thing that's more important to you, the video watcher, the treasure hunter. So the big thing for you, if I'm a viewer, the thing I want to know is on page 114. 114, about halfway down, I think there's a pretty good nugget here, nugget, for that would apply to many different boxes. And then the other thing, so we have this chapter following my other rules of blue. I mean, there's only two pictures in this chapter, right? There's one, the image right here, right? That's right there on the front page. And then two, there's the big nugget. There's nothing else. It's a medium-sized chapter. I wouldn't really say it's the shortest chapter. I'd put this one as medium short, I guess. But that's it. But if you want to focus in on blue, I mean, there is kind of a blue background to this. But this one could be stylistic. I mean, navy and gold. Coming from a Navy family, navy and gold is, in my mind, pairs well together. I think gold on a navy background looks pretty cool. I mean, the letters, the numbers right here in the bottom corner, the 111, 111, I mean, it's navy. Whereas, there's different colors. If you flip through the book, he uses different colors for the page numbers. So I don't know if I would count the navy background on this nugget as part of the Blue's Clues, like the lotus flower blue. When you see blue, you do this. But we can try to make it work. And there's no stories and stories. I mean, this one doesn't really have, I guess the main character could be Sam Brennan, but he's not your typical main character in that, like where the other chapters cover. So, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't consider James Marshall a main character. He's kind of first introduced, or President Polk. Wouldn't consider him a main character. All right, but so, and there is like an anonymous early miner character kind of mentioned. But let me get into the important stuff first, all right? So page 114. This right here I think is pretty major. So I'm going to introduce it, and then we'll dissect it a little bit. All right, page 114. Starts with fortunately. It's the third paragraph down. Fortunately, in our treasure hunt, again, anytime he mentions treasure hunt, it's kind of like a tune in, because he talks about some history of California, and then it's like abruptly, again, time travel to the future, to the present. Hey, our treasure hunt, right? Fortunately, in our treasure hunt, there is no reason for you to leave your family, move far away, and get into an argument over a plot of land. Our adventure does not require you to sleep outside on the dusty ground, although a camping trip is always a fun idea. You won't need to schedule rations or stock up on survival kits at an army supply store. Instead, it's very possible that at least one of our treasure boxes rests not too far from you. You might even discover one during a leisurely afternoon outing in which you enjoy a picnic with a loved one by your side. All right, so let's pause and dive into this paragraph, because there's been a lot talked about this paragraph, and I've been waiting to get into it. I don't mind skipping around for part 2, and I have the first like 40 videos I kind of skipped around, but I really wanted to avoid that for the lion's share because I think the chapters build on each other. So I was really excited to get here finally. Okay, so let's talk about it. A lot of people mentioned in Discord, hey, you can find this box on a picnic. You can find this box on a picnic, all right? And I mean, it's true. He says that. His actual words are, you might even discover one box, one of 5, during a leisurely afternoon outing in which you enjoy a picnic with a loved one by your side. Okay, so for me, sorry, something stuck in my throat. For me, when he says you might discover one, it's referring to the 4 boxes in part 2. Because this, all of part 1 is supposed to be about the lion's share. So if he would have said, if he's talking about the lion's share, he would have said, you might discover this box. Or anything speaking about this box is the box that's for part 1. Does that make sense? I mean, that's how I'm saying it. But when he talks about you might find our treasure or a different box, to me, he's talking about the 4. Not one of 5, but one of 4. So, I mean, I agree with a lot of people that, and it's little phrases like this that really make it hard to be a chapter 2 purist, right? Because he continually mentions our treasure, our tips for treasure hunting in general, throughout all of part 1. And when he mentions tips for all of treasure hunting, and when he mentions tips for all of treasure hunting in general, he can't just be speaking about the box in part 1. It's about, like, again, the book, because originally this book was supposed to be sold all as one. So, I mean, it's tough, right? Because he says, all you need is a part. He says, everything you need is in the individual chapters, or you can find the box with individual chapters. But then he'll go out and he'll say stuff like this that, puts out comments for the other chapters. I mean, it's hard to reconcile in your mind. I mean, I reconciled it, but again, a lot of people disagree. But let's look at that one more time, all right? You might even discover one during a leisurely afternoon outing in which you enjoy a picnic with a loved one by your side. I go back to the interview with, is it Big Dave, where he's asked, JCB is asked, it's like his 3rd or 4th interview, was with these 2 guys, these podcasters, and it's posted on his website's media links. All right, it's one of the video interviews, and he's asked, is the box, are they all rural, or is there some urban? And he kind of pauses a little bit, he thinks, and he replies with, well, it could be both or a combination, right? A combination of rural and urban. I mean, I feel like a few of the boxes are like way out in the wilderness, right? But I might need to redefine my idea of wilderness when he says, our adventure does not require you to sleep outside on the dusty ground, although a camping trip is always a fun idea, right? So, I mean, he's hedging his bets there, right? Is he just writing prose for the sake of writing prose? Is he just, being fun? Like, yeah, okay, because some of the solves that are out, some of the places that I've looked are, like, really far out there. Like, there's not a hotel within, like 3 miles. I mean, sorry, 3 miles. Like 3 or 4 hours. So, like, you either have to get a hotel site and go out, or you have to camp near there, right? So are those really, really remote solves out of the picture? If he's saying, you don't have to, is he kind of implying that everything's within, day trip range, and you can exclude the really, really remote areas, right? Which would definitely cross out a lot of Alaska. Or again, is he just, being fun? Is he just writing stuff for the sake of writing it, right? Again, you don't have to stock up on, you don't need to schedule rations or stock up on survival kits. It's very possible that at least one of the boxes, all right, so when he says at least one of the boxes, I think that jives with what I'm thinking. Okay, a few of the boxes, 2, maybe 3, are like pretty far out there, right? Pretty remote, that you may need a camp overnight. because there's not like a really suitable built up hotel stay area nearby. But a few of the boxes are pretty close. I mean, how far would you drive for a picnic? 30 minutes, an hour? I don't think I'd drive more than an hour for a picnic. You know, you got your charcuterie plate, you got your meats and cheeses in a little lunchbox, and it's going to go bad. It won't be, you know, the ice will melt by the time you get there. You know, your sandwiches be kind of soggy. So, I mean, picnic range, I'm thinking under an hour. So are there, you know, and there are plenty of solves. People have put up plenty of solves for all the boxes that are within an hour of a pretty major city. I think so that's what I'm getting from this chapter. I think, and again, this is something that it's just a confirmation for me because I'd already kind of, my solves kind of include 3 kind of remote boxes and 2 that are kind of within an hour from a major city, right? So I think that's pretty fair. I mean, how close do we think? 15, 20 minutes from like a downtown center? I mean, the Houston people will be happy about that, right? Because that's what they're all about. You know, there's some Bay Area solves. So, okay, I had a rule that no city mentioned in the book, that there's not going to be like a treasure box near any city in the book. So when he talks about like San Francisco, the Bay Area, I'm drawing like a nice big perimeter around the whole Bay Area, and I'm not putting any boxes in there. You know, which is pretty good because for me, my Northern California solve is like, again, pretty far up there, not really close to the Bay. What else? Okay, so all right, so now we're getting into the little bit of the out in the woods. All right, so if you don't want to hear some silliness, you should probably tune out now. Okay, so check this out. I'm a big fan of the book Don Quixote. I read it a couple times in middle and high school, junior high and senior high or whatever, and it made an impression on me, right? And okay, so, and I'd never known this about the history of the state California. So we're looking at page 110, second paragraph. Oh, and another thing, this chapter is another chapter, I think the third one, that kind of breaks what I thought was a rule of, he introduces a little bit about himself. Matter of fact, this chapter is unique for not having anything about himself. This is the second one in a row, because the chapter 11 just goes right into, you know, the fictional account, or, you know, not fictional, but the, I don't know, historical drama, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But chapter 11 does not have anything about himself. All the other chapters open up with an anecdote about himself. Not chapter 11, nothing in there about him. Same with chapter 12. So that's 2 back-to-back treasure-related chapters. Again, we have that theme, that mirror image. I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, are these 2 chapters, the fact that they're together, you know, mirror images of each other? Is there, you know, the gold theme, that's a pair, right? Everything has been in pairs so far. Are we looking for an emerald that's in between 2 mountains? I mean, this could be a pretty big theme, even though green is not ostensibly. Green is not, what's the word I'm looking for? There's really no hues of green that I'm seeing in chapter 11 and 12, so that would go against that kind of rule with the emerald. But 2 mountains, 2 chapters that are together and something in between. I mean, if we want to dive into that, page 108 and 109. 109 is not actually written on that page, which is not unique. He does that on a couple full page descriptions. But I'm getting a little carried away. Let's lock back in. All right. So chapter 12, second paragraph in. Normally, I ignore the first paragraph or 2 paragraphs because they're normally about himself, and it's like an anecdote that I think gets us into whatever we're supposed to pay attention to. But this one, it doesn't. So, and it's the second paragraph, so I don't feel terrible about keying in on it. Okay. Especially because, okay, let me get it. It just caught my attention. Let's go into the second sentence. In 1562, the first Spanish explorers began referring to this land as California, naming it after a Spanish novel whose main character was a powerful black queen named Calafia. Okay, pause right there. Because the second time, I think the first time I breezed through it, second or third time I had to stop because I had never heard that before. I mean, I lived in California, but didn't go to school in California, so I don't know if there's like a California statehood class. But like when we learned about California in like American history class, we learned about, the gold rush, the purchase, the missions and everything down there. But we didn't cover or if we did, I wasn't paying attention. I skipped that day. And I hadn't heard it in anything since, that's where California came from. I never even thought about where it came from. I just figured it was a Spanish word for something. I don't know, which is weird but I stopped right there and I had to Google it. I'm like, is this true? Where did California come from? And it's true. So again, the chapter, page 110, naming it after a Spanish novel whose main character was a powerful black queen named Calafia. Okay, so a few things here. Whenever, not whenever, but most of the time, if someone's telling you something is named after a Spanish novel whose main character is this, but why didn't they say the name of the novel? It just makes me curious, and I'm wondering if we're supposed to look up the name of the novel, because it's very easy. You could have just said naming it after blah blah blah, which would be the Spanish novel's main character. But so I took it as a hint. I'm supposed to look up the name, right? So got really excited, looked up the name. It's a it's a tricky part about having my phone there. So the name is it's in Spanish, of course. The Adventures of this guy. All right. I'm a terrible YouTuber because I didn't write down the name. But anyways, it's the name of this guy. Santiago. No, that's like a stereotypical name. The name of anyways. Okay, the name of this guy. There's the novel that mentions Calafia is the second in a 4-part series. It's a 4-part series about this traveling knight gets in all kinds of adventures. It's considered one of the first books of its kind in Europe. That it's it's a romance, and by romance I don't mean lovey-dovey kiss. It's like the romantic time, romantic period, romanticism as a theme. It's all about knights and chivalry and all that stuff. So here's where it gets fun, okay? And this is all from the Wikipedia and verified by other sources. 9 out of 10 sources agree. There's always going to be that 10th one, right? So the first Spanish explorers who landed, this book was so popular at the time, it was like common knowledge. It'd be like me landing somewhere and saying, man, this looks like, now I'm blanking, a Star Wars reference, like the moons of whatever. Or it'd be like me landing, what's another popular movie that everyone's seen? Or, okay, you walk into a casino, I'm like, man, this is right out of James Bond. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? So these explorers, when they landed, they tell each other and they write down in their missives back home or whatever, hey, this place looks like the place that Calafia rules, right? The Black Queen. This looks like California, right? Named after Calafia. Because everybody knew the book because it was that popular. Everyone knew what they were talking about, right? That's how big this book was and this novel was. And this novel, it's important to note, it's the second novel in the series, right? So the main character, who again, the main character is not Calafia because the book follows this knight, the adventures of this knight. So he'd be the main character because all 4 books cover him. So I don't know if that's a clue right there. I mean, she is a main character. I mean, maybe you could say, I haven't read the book yet. It's in Spanish, although I guess I could find an English translation. But I don't know if I'd say she's she's a main character. Maybe not the main character. Anyways, okay, so get to the fun part. So the state California is a state that he loves, right? And that's in this chapter. Let me, I brushed over that really fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 words in this sentence. Very important. Short sentences are always really important, very punctuated. Page 114. It's a place I love, right? And again, that comes into play later when he talks about hiding the treasure in a place he loves. Everyone calls back to chapter 1, which if you're if you're a part 2 chapter purist, you're not supposed to call back to chapter 1. But and if you don't know what I'm talking about, because that just occurred to me, maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. Let's really zoom really quick to. It's the past and future box. Sunny day, California. Replace within. However, you may have replaced them daily. Was that one? I thought it was. Maybe it was the. Well, I'm blanking on it where it says I hid it in a place I love. I'm sure I'm gonna look really dumb when everybody shouts it out in the comments, types it up. I could have sworn it was again. This is bias. This is my memory playing tricks on me. I could have sworn that it was the Past and the Future box that says and I hid it in a place I love. Pokemon box. Well, I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. I'll just be silly and sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, anyways, California, it's a place he loves. It's right there. Part 1, page 114. Going back. Okay, I want to get to the point, but I keep getting distracted. So, he mentions in the book, page 110, California, named after Spanish novel whose main character was a powerful black queen named Calafia. Okay, that novel is the second book in a series of 4 about the adventures of this knight. Okay, in Don Quixote, pretty well-known book. Most of us know about Don Quixote, whereas most of us don't know about this book that I'm so silly for not having the name so I can tell you. I don't even have my other phone on me. And this is anyways, in Don Quixote, chapter 6, at least I remember that part, when they're trying to like snap him out of his delusions and getting him to believe that, like, you're not a knight, it's not real. They're burning his books, all right? And the first book they grab to burn is, they read off the title. It's this book, the book that California is named after. Because again, it's such a big hit. It'd be like me writing a scene where a character's delusional and he's, you read off like The Hobbit because he thinks he's like a hobbit or something. Like, everybody knows The Hobbit. Or a character who thinks he's a wizard, and to snap out of it, they're burning his Harry Potter books. Like, you all would know the reference, right? So that's what's happening in Don Quixote, that they're grabbing this book and they read out the title. And as soon as that happened, again, I'm not saying that that's a clue. I'm not saying Don Quixote is a key part of the solve. I just really wanted to share that I found that with you guys because I just thought it was so interesting. JCB strikes me as a kind of a romantic, and not romantic like, kissy kissy, but like, a romantic in the term. I don't know how else to describe it. Kind of a Renaissance guy, guy who wanted to be a pirate, a rock climber, a race car driver, a monk, mountaineer, never really aspired for a 9-to-5 office job. That's why he's out here, treasure hunting. So maybe, he read that book and saw himself a little bit. Maybe, he read the Spanish book or found a translation of it. Who knows? I just thought that was a fun little rabbit hole to go into. And you can go down it yourself. It's not that hard. Read the chapter. Google, where did California come from? A Wikipedia article. And it's like right there in the top. It'll be highlighted. The hyperlink will be in blue. California, the early Spanish, quoted this book. Just click on that book, and right there in that book's wiki, it'll lead you to, in chapter 6 of Don Quixote, yada, yada, yada. So that was a cool little tidbit. Wrapping this up, I didn't want to go this long, but so the cool things in this chapter are, hey, maybe this chapter is a twin or a reverse image, which I think there are some connections to the last chapter. I haven't really dove down that far yet, versus, right off the bat, mirror image that this guy had a lot of gold that was already dug up and processed, and he was loading it and then lost it in a storm, versus these guys had to go dig the gold and then they got it and didn't lose it. Guys, I'm just trying to think of like mirrors, right? Juxtaposition, counters, right? Or twins. A bunch of guys that found gold and lost it. A bunch of guys who didn't have gold and found it. You could do the Spanish who, successfully found gold versus the Spanish who, sold away their gold, sold away the land that didn't have the gold. North America, South America. There's a bunch of things we get into. I don't want to do it right now. That'll be another video. But I think that's pretty interesting that these two chapters might have something to do. So that's one thing, the 11th and 12th chapter, how they're both, I think, unique in the fact that they don't start off with an anecdote about, which Chapter 13 kind of breaks that rule. It goes back to the rule of, I mean, I say rule, right? But it goes into starting out with about himself. So it goes up. So, okay, so there's a little bit about, so page 116, chapter 13, introduces Michael Jordan, if you don't know who Michael Jordan is. And then it goes into him growing up in North Carolina. It talks about, his basketball, age of 6. So, but again, it does have an anecdote about himself versus, so it may not start out with it like the first paragraph. Like, if you bookend 11 and 12, if you look at 10, I was a competitive, eager child, lost a football game, whatever. So again, that starts out with himself. So you have these 2 chapters, 11 and 12, that are bookended by chapters that go back to the theme of having an introduction with her personal anecdote. So again, is there something there? Is there something in between? What's in between 11 and 12, 11 and a half? We look at the page numbers. So that's one whole thing. 2, you find out kind of clues about him. You learn about what he loves, right? It says it right there. I love California, right? I love the state. What does he say? Write it out. It says, it's a place I love. And love's mentioned a couple of times on that page. Then it goes into clues for treasure hunting, right? Which not every chapter has this, but the ones that do, I think you should pay attention to. And I'm talking about right there, page 114, right in the middle. Fortunately, in our treasure hunt, right? Whenever he leads into that, fortunately, in our treasure hunt, it reminds me of chapter 4. All right, watching my 2 children, similar way. Fortunately, right? Page 55. Fortunately, there is no jungle clearing required to find any of the treasure boxes I've hidden. All right, so again, he starts it with fortunately. Fortune, we're looking for a fortune, fortunately. And there's one more, but I want to do a proper deep dive in this. Every time he gives you a surface level clue of, hey, this is what you do in our treasure hunt. A lot of times he starts with fortunately, which is pretty interesting right there. And then the last thing was the Don Quixote, which I don't know. I wouldn't really, if I'm writing my 3 things for this chapter, I don't know if I'd even include it. I'd put it like 3.5 or like 4 in parentheses. So that's it. Pretty interesting, these 2 chapters. I mean, they're gold focused. The titles are eye catchy. I mean, he knows these chapters are going to get studied. He knows they're going to get covered for the fine-tooth comb. So I don't believe there's any major like boots on the ground hint. Like, you're not going to get a state out of there. You're not going to get like a trail name out of it. But I do think he knows you're going to read it, so he's giving you good advice, right? That way, when all is said and done, he can say, hey, in this chapter that I know you all read, I said this, right? It'd be one thing if there was a chapter that was not as eye-catchy or a little bit duller with the material, and he put an instructional hint in there, and it came out, and you're like, oh, man, well, I missed over that. Like, I didn't read that chapter. Like, he knows you're going to read this chapter. I mean, it's gold, it's treasure, it's nuggets, it's California, right? So something is going to be in this chapter that's going to be a major hint or a way to interpret the books. That way everybody will say, you're right, man. It was in there right in front of my face. I read it so many times. I think that's all I wanted to cover for today. Yeah. All right. So enjoy it, guys. Bye.
Now listen, all you treasure hunters, searching all around for plunder. Do you need some help to be your best? There's something that you're trying to find, but you're about to lose your mind. So come on, listen in to Estes Quest. Estes Quest, the show where he'll be sharing clues. Estes Quest will chase away your searcher's blues. Solving puzzles with a smile, he'll help your theories pass the trial. He's welcoming you here to be his guest. Now listen close and you'll be told the clues to where he's hiding gold. So come on, listen in to Estes Quest. Come on, listen in